Uncle Joe, racist Uncle Joe.
Are you talking about Biden or Joe Rogan?
Hey, hey, shut your mouth. Shut your little hamster mouth. Don't talk about President Biden that way.
Yeah. All right. So in the previous discussion, we talked about Neil Young and misinformation with Joe Rogan. If anyone's interested in listening to that, we have a separate video for that. Right now, we want to talk about the video that surfaced a few days after that controversy. And this video was someone taking 10 years or more worth of Joe Rogan videos, putting them together and then putting together all of the times that he said the N word, which came out to about over 100 times. And I think that the Rock criticized them, and essentially, I don't know what the exact words were, but he jumped ship. He's kind of like, I'm not on Joe Rogan's corner in this case. And we know Trevor Noah made a pretty good video also about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because at first, and this is again the power of information, the power of the information that we consume. At first, when I heard that the video had been made, I didn't even see it because I figured, okay, I saw like the first 3 or 4 seconds, and I figured, okay, I get the gist of it. But what I didn't know was, okay, he's probably saying it like I need the context for each time he said it, because I don't know if he's just paraphrasing what somebody else said. I don't know if he's telling a story. And back then, a lot of people thought that it was okay to say that word as long as they were like, paraphrasing or reading or whatever, right? There were certain
What?
instances.
When was that?
Yeah, like 10 years ago, if you were to say reading, are you being sarcastic, or is that an actual question?
No, I think it's both because I think, yes, I know that perhaps people said it a little more often
Yeah.
back in the day, but at the same time, not again.
Not everyone. I think there were certain like friendlies, people that thought that they had enough African American friends that maybe they felt comfortable that they could say it because they didn't think they were racist. They would, I don't think Joe Rogan is the only one that back then used to be okay to say that word if it was within a specific context. And I mean, even Joe Biden has said it, and there's videos of him in the 80s, but I don't want to go all the way back to the 80s. I'm just talking about like 90s and 2000s. But so when I started watching the video and then I started looking at reactions to that, I saw a few videos that were defending Joe Rogan. And they kind of made the same case that I did, that they're taken out of context, that that's not fair to put a video like that. But then I saw the commentary from Trevor Noah, and Trevor Noah played another video that I wasn't even aware of. Maybe it was in that compilation, but again, I didn't see the whole thing. And this is the video where he's making the joke about Planet of the Apes. I don't,
Mhm.
right? So you heard that one, and when
Yes.
I heard that, I was like, "Ooh, Joe Rogan's he's in trouble." And not only is he in trouble, this one's going to be really hard for anyone to try to explain away. And he's I don't want to be too harsh on him, but it was really dumb of him, stupid of him to make that joke, because it was a racist joke. He did use racism, and we'll recount the joke right now after I get your take on this.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate what he said. I think that, yeah, I think maybe some of the manner in which he used the word, maybe there was some context to it, but I know another thing that Trevor Noah mentioned, that there's really not a lot of context for which a white person would be using the word, right? And I think to your earlier comment is right. Like, societal things have changed tremendously, and maybe they changed a lot faster recently because there's just more information out there. There's just more opportunities for people to learn things, right? And I think obviously after the summer of 2020, there's also greater awareness about racist things and using racist language. Because I do have to say that if you are someone of a certain age who grew up in the East Coast, who listened to hip hop, who lived in the East Coast, I think that I know that I heard my friends say the word, I've said the word, but to the point that you said earlier, like it was usually among friends, right? And it
Or
was,
you thought you were a friendly. You thought
yeah,
you had
exactly. It was like a friendly thing. It's kind of like
but no,
how
but meaning that you thought that you were in tune enough with African American culture that you feel comfortable saying it. You feel like you had a pass.
correct, like right, like I'm Latin American. I'm from Colombia. I grew up in the East Coast. I'm an immigrant. Like I related to a lot of what their story was, and also what they were saying, right? And I don't want to speak for you, but I imagine it might have been the same thing as you felt being here in the West Coast, and you had a group like NWA who was also talking about some of the experiences that you were having as a Mexican American here in LA. And that was the culture that, in the East Coast, it was hip hop, New York, sort of that history, that culture that pulled you. Um, and yes, because I think part of it is like you 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 think that you saying it because you think you can relate to it, but you it's not until later on that you realize how charged that word is and
Right.
the kind of the connotation, like the pain and the hurt um, that comes with it. And it's just like very similar, like Colombians, we say marica, right?
Yep.
We say marica and we think that we're not being homophobic.
Or
And you have
puto
women that are calling each other marica, but then you realize, like, yeah, maybe calling people marica may not be the right thing to do.
or Mexicans chanting puto
Yeah,
in soccer games.
yeah.
And so going back to Rogan and his use of it, so I'm neutral on Joe Rogan. I think there's a lot of other podcasts out there that are more interesting to me. So it's not like I listen to all of Joe Rogan's podcasts. He's had some pretty good, interesting conversations with some of his guests, but these days there's so many other options for so many other good podcasts that I find myself listening to other a wide variety of podcasts. But when I saw that video, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that a lot of these are probably taken out of context. It seemed like a hit piece, honestly, because it came right after the whole controversy with the misinformation on COVID and Neil Young. And I thought somebody probably had this already set up, and they were just waiting for the right opportunity to put it out there to cause the most harm. And ultimately, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get Spotify to censor or to remove Joe Rogan. And part of it, I think, is because he's not a polarizing figure. Now, you might think this is conspiracy theory, but let's just go there. So I'll put it out there. Our country is really polarized right now, and you have the two camps, the Democrats and the Republicans, that fight about domestic things, cultural things, sometimes trivial things. It seems, I'm not saying all of them, but just some domestic. But when it comes to foreign intervention, both parties are on the same page. They're both pro-war, right? So there's phases of both the Democrats and the Republicans that are pretty much the same. You get the same thing. They do differ in other areas like immigration, cultural issues, but again, those are just like domestic issues. Joe Rogan is the one platform where that polarization doesn't exist. Joe Rogan speaks his mind, and he's usually able to listen to other people across the spectrum, either to the right of him or to the left of him, and he's able to have a conversation. Joe Rogan would probably be the guy that would question whether or not we should be stoking the flames of war with Russia, right? He would be saying things that the establishment media would not want somebody with millions of listeners to listen to. So with that angle, I can see why it's in the interest of the entrenched media to censor Joe Rogan, especially because he gets more views than they do. So that's why I think it may have been like a coordinated hit piece. But when I saw the video, I thought, okay, this video is spliced together, it's taken out of context. Just based on everything else I've heard from Joe Rogan, it doesn't seem like he's like a racist guy. He sounds like a lot of friends that I know or a lot of people that I've met. And but then when I heard him say, which is in this video, which I'm not gonna play, it's 5 minutes, but when he's telling the story about the Planet of the Apes, where he says that he wanted to watch Planet of the Apes, and I think they were in a cab or in an Uber car, and the guy took him to a movie theater to see Planet of the Apes, and he asked the driver, "Hey, is this a safe neighborhood?" And the guy, I guess the guy said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And then Joe Rogan says, when we got off of the car, we landed Planet of the Apes. And he said, I think there were a lot of black people there. And then at the end of that video, he says, "Oh yeah, that was pretty racist. I shouldn't have said that." So even he admitted that he had crossed the line. So I saw that clip from Trevor Noah, and I thought, oh man, this one's pretty bad. Let's see how he apologizes. And I was actually really disappointed in Rogan that when he apologized, he tried to weasel his way out of it. He tried to say that, no, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean for it to be racist. I just, I think the excuse he uses that he just meant it that he had arrived in like a place completely foreign to him.
It was a racist comment, and I think instead of trying to justify it, he should have said, it was a racist comment. I know it was racist. I'm sorry. He's learned or whatever he wanted to say. But I think to your point is when you hear that, it's just so and I think the problematic thing is, well, and that's not even the problematic thing, because after he said it right away, to your point, he says, "Oh, that's racist." And it's like, yeah, it is. So it's like he knew it was racist back then. So it's not like it's not something that he wasn't aware of at the time, but maybe he just didn't think that it was going to be picked up, or that he was going to face the consequences until however many days later.
Yeah, and
years later now.
Yeah, and when I say that it's pretty bad, what I mean is that it was obviously an offensive joke. It was a racist joke. He's a comedian, so comedians use offensive language, offensive jokes often. Obviously, they joke about fat people, they joke about transgender people. So he made a joke that he thought it was. He took the risk or the gamble to say, this joke is a little racist, but it might get me laughs, so I'll say it. It's hard to say whether or not that makes him a racist person, because it could just be he's saying a racist joke. It's insensitive, but again, like, does that allow you to define Joe Rogan as a racist person? Especially, this was 10 years ago. Do we give people the opportunity to evolve and to become a better person? And I've heard some of his interviews with personalities like Ben Shapiro or Candace Owens, and I've seen this guy push back on them when they're trying to spill their BS about everybody in this country can succeed and blah blah blah. And no, Joe Rogan's when the way that he talks about the institutional racism, everything that is thrown against like African American communities and so forth, somebody with empathy is like, he understands. Now that doesn't mean that that doesn't again justify or give him I don't give him a pass for that racist joke like 10 years ago, but at the same time he shouldn't be canceled. We should give him a chance to own up to it, and that's why I was disappointed, because had he owned up to it, I mean, I don't know what the reaction would have been, but for me, it would have been more satisfying. And I think the problem is that we live in a society that is so judgmental when it comes to these things, that if he tries to own up to it and say, yeah, it was a stupid joke and it was a racist joke, I shouldn't have said it. That's not who I am. He could have used the same explanation that I've used before, which would totally... which is totally valid for him, by the way, because I'm pretty sure he grew up in a pretty racist environment. I mean, both you and I grew up in racist environments. Mm-hmm. I still have, like, every now and then, I still have thoughts. I still am programmed a certain way that would be considered racist. And I have to catch myself and say, don't be stupid. You learned that when you were a kid. You have to snap out of that. right? So
Hmm.
I have to filter all that. And we all filter all this nonsense that we learned as kids. That's probably what he's doing as well. I mean, he learned a lot of racist shit when he was a kid, I'm sure. He's from the East Coast, right? So he did that. If he would have found a way to put that out there and to say, look, yeah, that was stupid. That was 10 years ago. I grew up with a lot of racism around me or some, and I picked up some bad stuff. I don't know if he would have been able to say that or not. I know that it's like, it's very explosive to try to make that argument, but at least that's the truth. At least that's the honest justification or explanation that he could have given for this, but he didn't. He tried to like distance himself from it, and that was disappointing because he's somebody that a lot of Americans value his opinion because he's a straight shooter, because he tells it like it is. So he should have just owned up to it. I I don't know. Again, I don't. It's a testament to our society that people can't even be honest because of the repercussions.
Well, that's the thing, but that's the, and particularly around race, right? It's difficult for him to admit that he's racist and that he grew up in a racist society, right?
That he
So,
well, he's not admitting that he's racist. He can admit that he grew up in a racist society and around racist people, and that every single day is like a struggle to deprogram yourself, because it's really hard to do that. And I think
mhm.
most people would understand that. But he doesn't have to say I'm racist. He just has to have be able to say that I grew up and I learned a lot of stuff that was racist. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, some of that stuff carries with you when you get older. Like I've admitted, like I've said before. And I'm not even white. I'm Mexican.
I know. And yeah, but you make a good point. I think it's important to separate the person from the behavior, right? And the comments in this case, and that is he's saying something that is racist, but he may be trying to address that. And to your point, that I think we are all trying to learn how to do that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people want to fight critical race theory and any type of other information that kind of puts that mirror up to your face to tell you, oh, like, my family, myself could have been part of the problem all along. So how do I become part of the solution, or how do I grow and make sure that I reprogram myself, and that my kids or the people around me are do better moving
Hmm.
forward.
Yeah. Which again, to me, it seems really simple. But then again, maybe if I was a public figure, if I had millions of listeners, followers, and I try to use this justification, I'd probably get torn to pieces. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds sensible to me because I'm telling you, and you seem to agree. It's like, okay, he understands. So I guess it's a pretty good, it's a pretty good argument. But and you put it out in the internet, and it takes a life of its own. It metastasizes, and it just spreads, and you have no control over it. So he's in a tough situation, and I mean, he fucked up because that joke it's a stupid joke. It's not even that funny. You could be funny without having to be hurtful or racist. And he tried
Hmm.
to pick something that he thought was an easy joke. It was a loaded joke. It was racist, and it wasn't even that funny. And so that was just bad judgment on his part, and even worse judgment here with this apology. At least with me, I don't know how other people are going to process this apology from him.
Yeah, very true. So we'll see what happens and how he learns from, or not, from this experience. And also we'll see how Spotify and some of the other interests behind it. I think you made some interesting point that even these problematic parts of his behavior and past, there's also a lot of other things that he brings to the table and to the dialogue that probably other people, like I personally didn't know, because I've heard of him. I haven't listened to his show, but it does sound like he has, and he also talks about issues and things that need to be talked about.
And he usually has pretty reasonable takes. I mean, he's a he's a progressive, except when it comes to like gun rights, except when it comes to like a few other issues. People think he's a libertarian or right wing, but he's not. He's to the left of most of those people. Uh, you know what? Actually, I almost forgot to say this, but there is another video out there that I think it's even worse, and I
Oh my
think
God.
that he should get called out on it so that he could apologize and that he could try to tell us how he's grown as a person, because this is actually one of the reasons why I stopped listening to him. And it's not because, again, because they say he's spreading misinformation, and it's not because people say that he's racist. I stopped listening to him because he has connections to some of his buddies that have pretty horrific sexual allegation stories. Like this guy right here, Joey Diaz,
Mm-hmm.
there's a video, and again, there it's like, I think it's either in one of Joe Rogan's early podcasts or some other show that they were on. And Joey Diaz is telling the story about how he worked at a comedy club here in LA somewhere, and some poor girl from either the Midwest or the East Coast came to LA trying to get her career going in comedy, and they had open mic there in that club that he worked at, the comedy club. And the girl wanted to get on stage to just start tell her jokes. And this guy, Joey Diaz, a piece of shit, he told her that if she wanted to get on stage, that she had to go down on him and give him a blowjob. And the girl, this is the power dynamic, right? That where he abused his power because he had the power to either put her on stage or not. And I don't know how desperate she was. She would probably seems she was pretty desperate enough to go down on this guy to get a chance to go on stage. But then they were laughing at that. They thought that was funny. Joe Rogan's laughing about it. And Joey Diaz, he proceeds and he says how he saw this girl months or years later and how she looked like a total wreck. And that she confronted him, and or either, I forget, I'm sorry if I'm like missing some of the details, but the girl either wrote to him or confronted him and said, "You piece of shit, you ruined my life." And he started laughing hysterically at that, and so was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was laughing at that. And to this day, I don't think I've seen him address that, bring it up anywhere, and I don't know if anybody has called him out on it or not. He's been good about distancing himself from that. But that's a piece of shit thing right there to do from Joe Rogan, because I know that this guy Joey Diaz is his friend, but if you're a guy with any ethics and any empathy for what happened to that girl, you would have said, "Hey man, like, I know you think this story is funny, but that's fucked up what you did."
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. That's really fucked up. Like that's not even funny. So he didn't say that in the video. He was just laughing his ass off. And he hasn't addressed that. And that, I think, is pretty messed up. So that's when I realized, like, you know what? I'll listen to Joe Rogan, but it's just, there is a side of him. There is a side of him that I didn't like. And maybe that side of him was like 10 years ago, around the time that he made this joke about Planet of the Apes. That side I don't agree with. And it after I heard that story from Joey Diaz and knowing that they're still friends, and he talks so favorably about this guy whenever he talks about him, that's when I was just like, I can't separate that from like the new guy yet. I feel like that needs to be addressed somehow.
Yeah. I mean, that's terrible, and hopefully, this may be, after this controversy, as this issue continues to evolve, maybe they'll start taking a look at that and other problematic episodes and comments that he's made.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that he should get canceled because of that. I'm just saying that he should be held accountable for those things, and he should come out and say, "That's not me anymore." He should say, I mean, he has this friendship with this guy. I mean, I don't know, it's up to him, but it's just, he should have called him out on it. He should have corrected this guy, because that wasn't funny at all. Anyway, I think that I said all I've had to say. I think we can wrap it up. Any final thoughts?
Nope, that's it. I think I didn't realize we had so much to say about this particular piece of this story, but I'm glad that we had the conversation.
All right. So for all you out there, if you enjoy our content, make sure to check us out. We are Brown Perspective. Estamos on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Nos vemos.
Ciao.